Welcome back to Let's Play Metroid, and today we're having lunch with Kraid, where we may or may not end up murdering him in the process. Also, if you look at the video time, you notice it's a lot shorter than the previous videos. We're finally starting to pick up the pace. We now have the Varia suit, the wave beam, we have all kinds of stuff that helps us survive and kill stuff. So the last few parts are gonna be a lot shorter. Then again, Torin is always pretty short. It's straightforward and really small. As for Kraid's Lair, it's pretty much the opposite of Ridley's Lair. Ridley's Lair wasn't very big, but had really tough enemies and it was just very dangerous overall. Kraid's Lair is really big, but doesn't have very dangerous enemies, so surviving here isn't very hard, but you're gonna have to keep it up for a while. But if there's any advice I can give you for Kraid's Lair is to never go to the top right. If you look at the map for Kraid's Lair, you notice there are a lot of rooms on the top right that lead absolutely nowhere. Kraid isn't there, there are no missile tanks or E-tanks there, there's absolutely nothing, so it only exists to get you lost, and just don't go there. There's nothing there, there's no reason to go there, so you can only end up there if you don't know anything about the map and just end up there by a complete accident and then get lost and then have to go back to the very beginning because there was nothing there. This game would like for you to get lost. Not as in the sense of get out and fuck off, but as in not knowing where to go, because that way you'll spend more time on the game so you feel like you got your money's worth, or in most cases your parents' money worth. Back then it was pretty common, I think I mentioned the same during Castlevania. Luckily nowadays we have better ways of extending game time for the same price, because people don't usually realize that back then games also cost like 60 bucks. New games nowadays cost like 60 bucks as well, but you can also get Metroid 1 for like less than 5. Well, of the virtual console at least. There are also some people I'm familiar with who would buy Metroid 1 for like 80 bucks, and let me tell you, it's not worth it. Collectors who do that just for the sake of being able to have a physical cartridge, where people like myself on the other hand don't have to spend such an unnecessary amount of money. I don't really buy games so I can touch those games. I just need to be able to play the game, I don't really need to hold the game. But getting off that for now, we have 6 E-tanks! Yay! Even though E-tanks are a fairly common item, especially in later games when there's like a total of 16 of them, it's always so satisfying to get one. Even with all the great weapons you get, like the screw attack and all kinds of cool items you get in the later Metroid games, E-tanks are still my favorite ones. Just this permanent life extension that you just get more and more of as the game goes on. In fact, that's always a great thing about Metroidvanias, adventure games and RPGs, that you just get this sense of progress, like you're growing stronger with everything. Even though the game gets harder as well. I guess that's just one of the great things that video games can do. I mean, movies and music also have their own ways of conveying progress, but in video games you're just involved and that just feels good. With that said, I do like a song with a good build-up or a movie with a good climax. But nothing beats the feeling of being able to learn Super, Mega, Thunder, Power, Ultra, Meteor, whatever at level 80. Even though for that moment in the game it doesn't matter a whole lot because the boss is also at level 89. That's also a pretty painful in a funny way experience of playing a Metroid game. Playing it again, because the last time you played it you had the hyper plasma beam that went through walls and shit. Now you play it again and you don't even have the long beam. So what happens then? Well, you want that shit back again. I want to go back to having 20 E-tanks, but first I have to get 1 E-tank. That's a fun part of any Metroid game, as far back as Metroid 1. Hey, look at what's on screen right now, it's Metroid 1, I didn't realize you were still here. Can I play Super Metroid yet? Regardless, that's one thing I can give this game credit for. Now, I can give this game credit for a lot of things. In fact, everything that makes a Metroidvania in general fun is in this game, or at least almost everything. It's just that it's still lacking in a lot of things that a Metroidvania needs in order to have it consider a good game. But anyway, while I was saying that last sentence, I just missed 3 things going on screen. 1, I got hit by an enemy while I was going through a door with no way to defend myself. 2, more graphical glitches. And 3, I had to drop through another path of lava that in no way tells you that it's not dangerous in any way. Tiresome, but it's an NES game so I can forgive it as an NES game. Because keep in mind, I do complain about them, but I also keep going out of my way to keep playing all these NES games. So in the end I have no one to blame but myself, but I can't help it that I still must look at these games like a game designer with a critical eye. And again, as any sort of game designer, regardless of your time period. Well, still looking at the things that make these games good, but I tend to have an easier time noticing the things that aren't good as opposed to things that do make a game good. That's also just the two sides of the gaming community. Let's just say there's a game about to be released that's paying homage to some other game. First there's the positive side that's like, oh my god, this is gonna be amazing. Then there's the more critical side who thinks you better not fuck this up because they're just looking at all the things that could go wrong, where the positive side is looking at the things that could be great about it. And I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other, they're just two whole different mentalities. The positive people just care about having a good time and don't bother themselves with things they could be bothered by. The critical people, while it may not always seem like it, they just want games to be better, so not just for themselves, but also for the positive people, so games in general can just keep moving forward. And again, these two different mentalities aren't limited to like video games, but to every sort of entertainment. Movies, everything. And oh my god, it's Kraid! Kraid. This doesn't look like a boss room, you're not even looking at me, what is this? Also, I know you're not about to look exactly like you do in your artwork, but in the manual you look kind of yellowish, when here you look kind of brown. Talk to me, Kraid, what happened? Well, if you're not gonna talk back, I'm not gonna talk about you, instead I'm gonna talk about something else. First of all, you may notice that the moment I walked into this room I suddenly paused the game. That's because I got a phone call while recording this game, and it was my aunt, and my aunt talks a lot. I think I had to cut out like 20 minutes of pause screen because she just kept talking and she's lovely, but she tends to do that a lot. And Kraid is dead, and where are my 75 missiles? I'm supposed to get those. Damn it, Kraid, you cheap son of a bitch. Never having lunch with you again. Though he did throw a lot of croissants at me, so I can forgive him for that. That's pretty much all Kraid does. He throws croissants at you and shoots things out of his belly button. By the way, that one room before I got to Kraid, or should I say Kraid, with a question mark, there was an empty room and you noticed I shot around a whole lot because I could have sworn there's supposed to be something there. Well, actually, if I looked at the map I would know there isn't something there, but that room just sort of looks like there is supposed to be something there. I mean, it looks like some sort of item room, altar and everything, but in the end there's nothing there, and I guess it's supposed to make you think there's something there, especially since it's right after Kraid. I mean, I think you're supposed to get there from the other side, but you can get there from that side, so might as well. But yeah, why? Nah, why would this game ever try to make you think something that isn't true? It's not like it would make you fight some sort of fake boss, so you think you can get the Torian, but then it turns out you actually didn't beat the boss. No, that's madness, you're making up stories. That would mean this game is trying to confuse you in order to extend your gameplay time, and NES games never do that, even though 5 minutes ago I said that is exactly what NES games do. So I think a 10-year-old can see through my very obvious sarcasm. That wasn't the actual Kraid we just beat, that was fake Kraid. There are some minor things hinting at that it's not the actual Kraid, like you don't get the missiles, he's not in some sort of boss room or anything. But those are all things easily overlooked, so he's pretty much there as sort of a noob trap. He's there to make you think you can go to Torian even though you can't, and then you're confused and have to wander around. And as I already sarcastically hinted at, he's just there to have you extend your gameplay time so you feel like you got your money's worth. Luckily I always knew about fake Kraid because I played this game like 20 years after it came out, but I feel bad for the people who didn't realize it was a fake Kraid, went all the way to the entrance of Torian and had to come all the way back, and that's if they figured out that it wasn't the real Kraid, that there's still an actual Kraid to beat. But now you know, and it's important to know if you want to play this game, so the more you know. I just like using that clip. I mean, it's either that one or "and knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe." But now I'm getting really off topic. Anyway, we still need to have lunch with the actual Kraid. Oh, and by the way, the location where fake Kraid is at, you never need to go there at all. I just went there to show off fake Kraid, but there are no missile tanks there are no E-tanks there, so just avoid it because the only thing there is fake Kraid. If you really want to fight him like I did, go ahead, but there's nothing else there. Again, I just felt like showing off that there is a fake Kraid and to show off he's there, and if it wasn't for him, that would be another pointless location in Kraid's Lair. There are a lot of places in Kraid's Lair you just don't need to go, but just exist to get you lost. So even though Kraid's lair is pretty big, only like half of it is mandatory. Well, maybe a bit more than half of it, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, and by the way, where I am right now, that wasn't planned. I wasn't supposed to go here, but I forgot. In order to go up in Kraid's lair, you would need the ice beam. Luckily, there are alternatives like the detour I just went through, but with the ice beam you can just freeze those enemies there at the bottom and use them as platforms. That way you don't have to fight all those enemies. However, that red door over there you do need the ice beam for, so technically the ice beam is mandatory for Kraid's lair because that's the only way you're getting to Kraid. However, I have the morph ball jumping trick, so I don't need the ice beam, but well, it's sort of a glitch, so technically you would need the ice beam if that trick didn't exist. And it's a good thing too, because when I got to that point and realized I need the ice beam, I went like, oh crap, morph ball jumping trick, yes! And thank God for it, because otherwise I would have had to go back to Brinstar to get the ice beam, so I barely would have had any chance to show off the wave beam. So, as useful as the wave beam is as a killing machine, you kinda really need the ice beam to get anywhere. Well, unless you know about the morph ball trick, which wasn't supposed to be in the game, so it's kind of an exploit, so you do really need the ice beam. Especially later on, but I'll explain that when we get to it. So yeah, by intention they want you to have the ice beam at this point, but at the same time the wave beam is a lot more useful for killing Kraid. But then you also need the ice beam in order to get to Kraid, and oh god, it's this place! Notice how we're about to go down here with a very lack of platforms. We don't really need platforms because, well, gravity helps us down, but we're also gonna have to go back up again later. It's not too big of a deal, but it's kinda tedious when you fall down and then have to start climbing all over again. And it's mandatory too, because you have to beat Kraid, and this is the only way you're getting to Kraid, so it's also the only way to get out of Kraid's lair again. Also, this room we're in right now, this is like the 4th room in Kraid's lair with this exact same layout, with the exact same enemies. It's, again, I know exactly why they do it and why they had to do it, but in terms of it being a good Metroidvania, no. Oh, and this is the hallway right before we get to Kraid's lair, and there's a respawning enemy here, so you could potentially use this to grind for health if you're at low health before you fight Kraid, so that's good. Well, I said before we get to Kraid's lair though, we're already in the area called Kraid's lair before we get to Kraid's room. And this is Kraid. He still has the same fighting pattern as the fake Kraid. He shoots needles from his belly buttons and throws croissants at you. But he is a bit tougher. What I actually didn't show off is that fake Kraid, you can defeat him by only 1 missile. But anyway, just like Ridley is taken down easier with the ice beam, Kraid is taken out a lot easier with the wave beam because the wavy pattern of the wave beam can bypass these syringes he shoots at you a lot easier. But an even easier way to beat him is by using morph ball bombs. Kraid goes down surprisingly easy when you use the morph ball bombs, which I actually don't show off here because I wanted to use the wave beam for something. I'm also not using any missiles either because I'm just not very worried about dying against Kraid. Mostly because, well, there's an E-tank hidden in this room and it instantly restores all your health, so that's good. Even though I don't really need to pick up the E-tank because I have all the E-tanks I can carry, but again, it's a free health refill. Also, the E-tank is kind of a pain in the butt to actually get to. You're gonna see it in a minute and I'm gonna speed it up because I'm kind of failing with something as simple as touching an E-tank. But yeah, Kraid, try to use the bombs, maybe some missiles. Just never pick up the wave beam. The wave beam doesn't have a whole lot of use. I mean, again, it's really useful for killing random enemies, but you kinda need the ice beam, and the wave beam is really not essential. As I said before, I never picked it up in my first playthrough of this game. And for Kraid, the wave beam, even though it's still a lot more useful than the ice beam on Kraid, which is not a recommendation to use the ice beam on Kraid, because it freezes the things in midair and then you can't really get to him. So the wave beam is useful for Kraid, but the bombs and the missiles are even more useful, and then he goes kablooit! Both bosses defeated, now we can get to Torian and beat the Mother Brain, but first, E-tank. First of all, you actually have to stand in Kraid's piss in order to reveal there's even an E-tank here in the first place. Then you have to pick up the E-tank before it goes away again, so you have to shoot it again in order to reveal it again, and then try again, and then you also need to be in morph ball mode in order to get into that small grab to actually get the E-tank. What I'm doing here is trying to get to the E-tank in morph ball mode from the left side, when what I really should do is get there from the right side, so essentially from above the E-tank. It's gonna take me until near death to realize this, so edit. Thank you. Luckily I have the Varia suit, so I'm not gonna take too much damage from Kraid's piss. But yeah, just don't do what I'm doing here and approach it from the other side as I'm about to do right now. Just go off this edge and hug right and you should be able to get in there easily. Fun fact, in Super Metroid there's an energy tank pretty much like this one, but instead of being at the bottom right of where you defeat Kraid, it's at the bottom right of the room after you defeated Ridley. So that's fun. Also these rooms with the eyes and the teeth also appear in Super Metroid before fighting a boss. In case you couldn't tell, I really like Super Metroid. I would say it's like a really good version of this game, except a different Metroid game for that already exists. It's called Metroid Zero Mission. Another thing that Super Metroid showed me. You see these enemies here on the ceiling that go to the ground and then suddenly explode for no reason. Super Metroid showed me that they're not actually exploding, they're just digging into the ground. But here, you don't see them into the ground, you just see them explode. But here we are, the moment absolutely no one's been waiting for. It's the vertical climb from hell. Like I said, it's not that bad, but I would prefer to just not do this at all. Here's what you need to do. You have to shoot these blocks and then use them as platforms before they respawn. If you're still standing there when they do respawn, they push you off like that. Then you have to start all over unless you are able to save yourself by the few grey blocks that are in the middle of it. But if they push you to the right side, you don't get a chance to save yourself at all, so... Ugh. It's all about the timing really. Once you get the timing down, you shouldn't have too much trouble with it. And as I said in part 4, this is actually made more difficult with the wave beam than the ice beam because you're shooting all the blocks at once, so they're all gonna respawn at once. It does kinda make it go a little faster, but at the same time it's not the safest option because it's more likely that you fall down and have to start all over again. So now we're actually gonna take a break from the vertical climb from hell because there's a missile tank here and then we get a missile tank and then we go back to the vertical climb from hell. In fact, maybe it's actually a climb out of hell. Didn't God of War do something like that? Then again, Ridley's Lair would be a more fitting place for that because that is all the lava and stuff. If you look at the counter, we have 230 missiles. That is the max amount of missiles you're going to see me with, even though there are 255 missiles. Because in the footage you're seeing right now, I forgot to pick up those 5 missile tanks I did show off in the end, but actually didn't collect. I know I actually showed them off in part 4 and I already explained all of this in part 4, but just one more time to just clear things up, just in case. Not like it matters a whole lot. 200 missiles is more than enough to just beat the game. So we have all the missiles we need. We have all the E-tanks we can get. We have all the major items. So there's just one more thing we need to get. Or rather, get back. I think you all know what item I'm talking about. And it's an item that would be very useful right here. Because now I have to take another fucking detour in order to just get back to the entrance of Kraid's Lair. Just never get the wave beam. Fuck the wave beam. Useless. In fact, if it wasn't for having to show off the wave beam, this video would probably be over right now. Well, I don't have to show off the wave beam, but I feel obligated to because it's in the game. So, then again, it also did help me survive more than the ice beam probably would, but still, I recommend sticking with the ice beam. You can handle it without the wave beam. Especially during Torian, but I'll talk about that when we're actually in Torian. Which actually isn't a very long time from now, because we defeated Kraid, we defeated Ridley, so now the bridge to Torian is open. Just one more small trip through Brinstar, getting 1 or 2 items along the way. There's also still gonna be 1 or 2 more extra videos with cheat codes and the alternate endings this game has. But as for Kraid's Lair, we're pretty much done here, we just have to get out. The only thing I still want to bring up is that I do really like the music Kraid's Lair has. It's probably my favorite piece of music this game has. Not that there's a whole lot to choose from. Brinstar's theme, or also known as the theme of Samus, is also pretty good, but for now let's just get out of here, so join me next time during the grand finale of Let's Play Metroid. See you then.